from a moral perspective, this is the question that we have to ask ourselves as Americans. Is it acceptable, and I know Chuck Collins has been working on this issue for years, and many others have, but is it acceptable that the top 1% today earns more income than the bottom 50%? No, it is not. It is not. Is it acceptable, and this is an astounding fact, very few people talk about it, that the top 400 individuals in this country own more wealth than the bottom half of America, 150 million Americans. 400 and 150 million. Now, from a moral perspective, we have the dubious distinction of A, having the most unequal distribution of wealth and income of any major country on earth, and that's getting worse every day. And on the other hand, we also have the dubious distinction of having the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country on earth. So we got 22% of our kids living in poverty, Denmark less than 4%. Most of the major European countries less than 10%. So what kind of future do we see for America when you got millions of kids who do not have the education they need to make it into the middle class, don't have the nutrition that they need, don't have the housing that they need? What kind of future does that speak to for this country? So there is something fundamentally wrong in America when we have the most unequal distribution of wealth and income and the highest rate of childhood poverty. And that dynamic has got to change if we are going to make it as a middle class in this country. Now, when we talk about where we go in terms of tax policy, let me give you some specific examples. A couple of months ago, my office published on our website, sanders.senate.gov, the top 10 for the worst corporate tax avoiders in this country. Let me just give you a few. Won't give you even all 10. Our good friends, ExxonMobil, who we trust intimately. We know are working day and night to save the planet, global warming, and trying to make sure that working people have reasonable prices. In 2009, ExxonMobil made $19 billion in profits. By the way, for them, that was a bad year. That's true. That's true. But not only did ExxonMobil avoid paying any federal income taxes that year, it actually received a $156 million rebate from the IRS, according to SEC filings. But it's not just our friends at Big Energy, and we've got our friends on Wall Street. Bank of America. Last year, Bank of America received a $1.9 billion tax refund from the IRS, even though it made $4.4 billion in profits. And just a couple of years ago, as you all will recall, they received a bailout from the Federal Reserve and the Treasury Department of nearly $1 trillion. But it is not just the energy companies, and it is not just Wall Street, it is also our large corporations as well. General Electric, over the past 5 years, while General Electric made $26 billion in profits in the United States, it received a $4.1 billion refund from the IRS, and on it goes. So it seems to me that at a time when we are seeing record-breaking profits in the corporate sector, when CEO compensation is at an all-time high, at a time when many of these corporations pay little or nothing in taxes, the time is now to say to them, we are not going to balance the budget on the backs of the children, the elderly, the sick, or the poor. You are going to have to put into deficit reduction. You're going to have to pay your fair share of taxes. In 2005, 1 out of 4 large corporations paid no income taxes at all, even though they collected $1.1 trillion in revenue. So the simple truth is that if we're going to reduce the deficit in a responsible way, we have got to bring about a situation where these corporations start paying their fair share. Furthermore, there are all kinds of other loopholes that I think some of my colleagues here will get into. But certainly, it is beyond outrage, that the United States is losing $100 billion a year, every single year, because the wealthy and large corporations are stashing their money in tax havens in the Cayman Islands, Bermuda, and other countries. There is a photograph that we have in the Budget Committee. The chairman often brings it out. I don't know if any of you have seen it. It is a 4-story building, rather a normal-looking building. And he points out that in that building, there are 18,000 corporations in a 4-story building in the Cayman Islands, i.e., what 18,000 companies are doing is using that building as a postal address in order to avoid paying their taxes. Now, when we say that at a time when the rich are getting richer while the middle class is collapsing, and when we say that the effective tax rates for the wealthiest people in this country is the lowest in decades, and when we say it is proper and right to ask the rich to pay their fair share of taxes, some of our Republican friends say we are engaged in class warfare. Now, my response to that is twofold. Number one, class warfare is being waged in America today. Unfortunately, the wrong side is winning, and we've got to turn that around. But second of all, what I would tell you is that the vast majority of the American people understand the realities that we are talking about. Every poll that I have seen says that the wealthiest people should be asked to pay their fair share. So what we are talking about is not something that is terribly radical, something that is outside what mainstream thinking is about. It is something the American people want. According to a February 2011 NBC News Wall Street Journal poll, 81% of the American people support the creation of a surtax on millionaires to reduce the deficit. And that, by the way, is exactly what I will be bringing forward. So I think it's appropriate that they do that. And on it goes. Needless to say, we've got to repeal Bush's tax breaks for the wealthy. But at the end of the day, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? We are talking about a nation which is in very, very serious trouble.